This woman fell 33,000 feet from a plane and survived. In 1972, 22-year-old Vesna Vulovic was working as a flight attendant. But on January 26th, Vesna boarded flight 367. It was coming from Copenhagen and going to Zagreb. But the crazy thing is, Vesna wasn't even supposed to be on this flight. There was another Vesna who was scheduled to work that day, but something messed up the names and Vesna Vulovic took her place instead. And this is where it gets crazy. Suddenly, 46 minutes after takeoff, a bomb blew up and it tore the plane apart and began sucking people and everything out. At this point, the plane came crashing down and everyone on the plane died besides Vesna. Vesna was the only person not blown out of the plane because she was trapped in the plane's tail. And luckily, when the tail came crashing down, it landed on a big thick pile of snow which ultimately cushioned the fall and saved her life. She was then taken to a hospital and was in a coma for a couple of days. And that's when the doctors discovered she had broken every single bone in her body. But to everyone's surprise, she made a full recovery within 10 months.
What if I told you a Harry Potter star was brutally murdered? The Harry Potter books and films have captivated audiences across the globe for decades. But did you know a fatal stabbing cast a dark cloud over the films? Robert Knox was born in 1989 and loved acting from an early age. He went to Beth's Grammar School in Bexley and had been acting since age 11. He started to get kind of small roles in TV shows like The Bill, which you'll remember if you're my age. He went on to appear in the 2004 film King Arthur. Now in 2007 he auditioned for a role in the Harry Potter films. If he got this role, it would obviously be amazing for his career. And sure enough, he got the part of Marcus Belby in The Half-Blood Prince. He was thrilled to not only get the role in this film as well, but also be cast as the role of Marcus in the following film, The Deathly Hallows 2. However, no one had any idea that he would not survive to film the second film. On the 17th of May 2008, it's reported that 18-year-old Rob and his friends got into an altercation with a guy named Carl Bishop outside of a bar. A week later, on the 24th of May, Rob was out with his younger brother Jamie. This was just 4 days after the commencement of filming of the Harry Potter film, so he was obviously on a high. The boys and some other friends that they were with were outside a bar in Sidcup in London. Just after midnight, something horrific unfolded. Carl confronted the group with what is reportedly 2 kitchen knives. This turned into a vicious brawl. Rob was desperately trying to save his younger brother Jamie when he was stabbed. Tragically, the stabbing was fatal. Carl was arrested and charged with murder and reportedly showed absolutely no remorse for the attack. He was found guilty and was given life in prison with a minimum of 20 years. An annual film festival was created in Rob's honour named the Rob Knox Film Festival.
In 1998, a sailor was on his night shift aboard a cargo ship bound for Europe, keeping watch over the shadowy deck. Suddenly, he heard a loud pounding coming from one of the containers below. Terrified, since the containers were only supposed to hold products, not any living creatures, he quickly woke up the captain. The experienced captain listened carefully and said, "It could be nothing. Let's check it out, but don't wake the others. It might just be the ship settling." Grabbing flashlights, they moved cautiously toward the source of the sound. As they pried open the container, a figure suddenly lunged out, tackling the captain to the ground. The sailor leapt into action, wrestling the stowaway off, and together they managed to subdue him, tying his hands and forcing him to sit under the harsh glow of their flashlights. The man looked gaunt and exhausted, barely coherent. Realizing the gravity of the situation, they changed course to the nearest port, intending to turn him over to the authorities. After his arrest, police discovered that he had hidden aboard the ship in hopes of making it to Spain. However, lost in the darkness for weeks on end, he had suffered severe sensory deprivation, having underestimated the length of the journey. He was eventually sent back to his home country of Senegal after being held for a month.
Guys, welcome back to my channel. Welcome back to another video. If it's your first time here, or if it's your first time watching my videos, hi.
The woman you just saw in that video murdered her own daughter with the help of 2 family members because she believed that her daughter was possessed by a demon. This is Claudia Hernandez. In September of 2021, Claudia thought her 2-year-old daughter Arlie was acting weird. According to her, her daughter's eyes changed. They were vacant and empty. She claimed that her daughter's voice wasn't her own. and she said that she knew she was possessed by a demon. Claudia told investigators, "I knew it was a demon because I go to church." So at one point, Claudia put her fingers into her daughter's mouth to try to force her to vomit, and when she did that, her daughter bit down on her. She claimed that's when she knew this was a possession, and so she brought her daughter into a church. Claudia then got her brother and her father to meet them at the church, and they performed an exorcism on the little girl. An exorcism that lasted over 20 hours, where the three of them were putting their hands around the girl's neck, choking her out, abusing her, holding her up in the air, throwing her around, screaming at her. And heartbreakingly, even when Arlie told her own mother, "I love you," as she was dying, Claudia claimed that that was a demon. Now, that video I showed you at the beginning of this was actually posted after Claudia had murdered her daughter. Yeah, she thought she'd start up a YouTube channel after killing her kid. Obviously, that didn't end up going too well because she was arrested. And this story's flat out disturbing. If you want to hear more true crime stories, listen to the podcast Murder in America that I co-host with my wife Courtney. It's available on all streaming platforms.
There's this internet thing that goes around every single year saying if you type in Illuminati backwards into your browser, it redirects you to the NSA website. We're about to find out if that's true right now. So it looks like it redirected me to the NSA.gov, which means it is true. But let's talk about why it's true. Apparently a man named John Fenley set up the domain for Illuminati backwards to redirect it to the NSA's website. He was interviewed by Snopes, and he decided to just play a prank on everyone by doing this. He said it's kind of like a Rickroll plus shock site. When I had the idea to forward the domain to the NSA, I couldn't pass it up and couldn't stop laughing. And literally anybody can do this. There's no whole crazy conspiracy behind this, just some dude playing a prank. But I wanted to highlight this because literally every single year, somebody will bring this up and the internet will go crazy. In this case, like I said, there's no conspiracy behind this. Honestly, you guys should try it for yourself. I'm gonna put up the Illuminati backwards, how it's spelled, right above me right now, so you guys can just screenshot it, do whatever you want with it. If you have friends or family that didn't know this or didn't see this video, go ahead and prank them. Let me know what you guys think about this in the comment section below. And as always, these videos are for informational and entertainment purposes only.
In 1995, Robert Overtaker wanted to raise awareness for homelessness with a stunt that would grab the world's attention. His plan was to ride a jet ski straight over Niagara Falls and parachute safely down. On October 1st, 1995, Robert mounted his jet ski and powered through the waters above Niagara Falls, his goal set and adrenaline pumping. Spectators watched in anticipation, unaware of the tragedy that was about to unfold. As he approached the edge, Robert launched himself and the jet ski over the roaring falls. But as he plummeted downwards, disaster struck. His parachute failed to open. Without the parachute, he was helpless against the pull of gravity. He crashed into the freezing waters below. The impact was brutal. His body was tossed like a rag doll, violently thrashing against the raging current, limbs twisting unnaturally. Minutes felt like hours as the rescue team scrambled to find him. When they finally located his lifeless body, it was a grim sight. His face was unrecognizable, battered, and bruised from the crushing fall. His limbs contorted in unnatural positions. And his jet ski bobbed lifelessly on the surface, a haunting reminder of the stunt that went horribly wrong. Imagine losing your limbs just because your dog licked you. Well, that's exactly what happened to Greg Manterfell. He was letting his dog lick him like we all do when suddenly days later he became very sick. When Greg first started noticing symptoms, he thought it was just the flu, fever chills, and some muscle aches. But within hours, things took a shocking turn. Dark bruises started appearing all over his body and he was rushed to the hospital. Greg's limbs began turning black as his body prioritized his vital organs, cutting off blood flow to his arms and legs to keep him alive. Doctors were stunned to see that his infection had spread so fast, causing severe tissue damage within hours. Doctors traced his condition to a rare bacterial infection called Cytocatophaga. This bacteria is actually common in dogs and cats' saliva, but it's super rare for it to affect humans like this. The bacteria entered his bloodstream and triggered sepsis, a life-threatening reaction where the body attacks itself. His blood pressure plummeted and circulation to his limbs cut off, and doctors had no choice but to amputate his legs and parts of his arms to save his life.
So this woman, let's call her Deucey. And Deucey has a problem. She's a little lonely. I mean, she's single, she's in her 20s, living in Bristol, England, and she wants to date. So one day, she gets on Tinder, and she's swiping around, looking for a potential match, and that is when, boom, she matches with this guy, Liam. And she thinks Liam is So Liam and Ducey, they chat a little, they connect, and soon they make plans to go out on a date. And so they go out on this date, and they end up meeting at this well-known chicken place, and they're having a good time, and at the end of the date, Liam and Ducey, they're really feeling each other. So he invites her back to his place to watch a movie, and maybe, I don't know, maybe smash a little, I don't know. And she's like, alright. And so they go back to Liam's place, and he opens a bottle of wine, and they chill, and they start watching a movie. And so far, everything seems to be going great. But then, about an hour in, Ducey gets an uncomfortable feeling in her stomach. So she's like, yeah, I'm gonna hit up the bathroom real quick. And so Ducey gets up to go to the bathroom, and she goes in there and she ends up dropping a whole ass deuce in Liam's toilet. But whatever, at least she finally feels better and she can get back to her date. Until when Ducey's done using the toilet, she goes to flush and the toilet won't flush. I guess she clogged it. And so she low-key panics. I mean, this date is going well, and she stopped up his toilet? What is he gonna think? This is gonna ruin the whole date. And she doesn't know what to do. But then she notices the bathroom window, and she gets an idea. She's like, what if I just scoop it out of the toilet and throw it out the window? And so that's what she does. Ducey reaches down into the toilet bowl, and she grabs her turd, wraps it up in toilet paper, and she quickly throws it out the window. Here's the thing about this window, though. This isn't no regular window. It's actually a double window with multiple panes of glass. So her turd flies through the first window, but then it's stopped by the glass on the second window. And it slides all the way down, and it falls into a crack between both windows. And of course, Ducey starts freaking out. She's like, what the fuck? She didn't realize the window doesn't open to the outside. So now her poop is in plain sight at the bottom of this double window situation. Here's actually what the inside of the window gap normally looks like. So now her turd would be resting way deep down in this crack here. And so Ducey's like, oh, bloody hell. Now what's she gonna do? She can't just leave it there in between these two windows. I mean, Liam will eventually see it or smell it. And so she decides the best thing to do is to tell him the truth. And so she leaves the bathroom, and I assume she washed her hands, but she leaves the bathroom, she goes to Liam, who is still on the couch, and she tells him exactly what happened. She's like, I dropped a load in your toilet, and I accidentally clogged it up, and I tried to scoop it out and throw it out the window, but I didn't know you have a double window, and the poop slid down and got stuck between the cracks, and I don't know how to get it out. And Liam, he seems like a nice guy, and he doesn't want to make her feel bad about it, so he's like, no worries, we'll just fish it out and throw it in the bin, no problem. But now they have to access the window gap by going outside and opening the window from the outside. So they go outside, and that is when they discover the outside window is completely sealed shut. Like, it doesn't open at all. So Ducey's turd wrapped in toilet paper is trapped, and it's on display for anyone walking by to see. Here's actually a photo of it, and if you zoom in, you can kind of see it right there, wrapped in toilet paper. And so Liam's like, okay, no big deal. I'll just break the window and we'll get the dookie out that way. But no, Ducey actually has a better idea. She just happens to be an amateur gymnast. No, like, really. She's an amateur gymnast, and she thinks maybe she can climb up and reach down and grab it out somehow. So she and Liam, they go back to his bathroom, and she climbs up and puts her head and shoulders into the shaft, and she tries, but she can't quite reach the poop. So then Liam gives her a little boost, and he's holding her legs as she dives deeper down to the bottom, and there she finally grabs it, and she passes it up to Liam, and he gets it, and he throws it away. Boom. Problem solved. Everyone's happy. Until, again, when Ducey moves to get out of the crevice, she's unfortunately stuck upside down. Like, literally upside down. And Liam, he tries to help her, but he can't get her out. Like, she is seriously stuck in there. So, to top off this first date that's clearly going so well, Liam has to call the fire department. So, Liam calls the fire department, and he's like, my date got stuck in the shaft trying to get out her her phone. Then, sometime later, a whole ass fire brigade shows up, and they all have to cram in the bathroom so that they can rescue Ducey, and this is an actual photo of all of them doing that. And if you think that's embarrassing, someone actually took a picture of her stuck in the window. Now, lucky for her, the firemen do fish her out, and she's physically okay, although this might be the worst first date story I've ever heard. And in case you were wondering, like I said, Liam's a nice guy, and he and Ducey did end up going out a couple more times on a couple more dates, but ultimately they weren't a match, and they did not end up together. Wow. Dumbest story we've ever done.
The last thing she ever said to her family was that her boyfriend was either going to propose to her or kill her. In 2005, 20-year-old Rhonda Casto's mother introduced her to a man that she thought would be a great fit for her daughter. And that man was Stephen Nichols. Stephen seemed great and nice. He was successful and also recently divorced. And when Stephen met Rhonda, he was instantly smitten because Rhonda was beautiful, she was a model, but she was also quite younger than him. Rhonda was 20 years old and Steve was in his 30s. And when the two started dating, things got really serious really fast. Steve would absolutely shower Rhonda in gifts. The two moved in together and eventually had a daughter together. Steve would say that the relationship was great, that Rhonda desperately wanted to marry him, that the two of them looked at rings already and planned to get married that summer. But those closest to Rhonda told a very different story. Rhonda's family and friends said that Rhonda was very unhappy and she was thinking of ending things with Stephen. She felt like she had no control over her life, that her relationship with Stephen was toxic. They were always fighting and that Stephen had even become abusive. Rhonda even took a photo to show her loved ones of all the bruises down her back from Stephen pushing her down the stairs. On March 16th, 2009, Rhonda and Steve's young daughter was with Rhonda's mom because the couple planned on going on a hike. It was a hike in this very beautiful area of Oregon called Eagle Creek. But before they left, Rhonda told her mom that on that hike, Steve was either going to propose to her or he was going to kill her. Like I said, the place that they were going to go on this hike was very beautiful, but it was also quite dangerous. The trails were very narrow and they were right next to very steep, high cliffs. During the hike, Steve said that it started to rain, so he suggested that him and Rhonda go back, but that Rhonda started acting really weird. That Rhonda draped a towel around her shoulders and started running around screaming that she was Superwoman. Rhonda was just running around screaming that she's Superwoman, but she's running so fast on these narrow trails and it started to get wet from the rain, and Rhonda slipped and fell off the 100-foot cliff. Stephen claimed that he hiked all the way down to where Rhonda's body was, and then he spent about an hour trying to give her CPR until he realized that it was no use, that she was gone, and then he fell asleep on her body. When he woke up, he hiked all the way back to his car, and only then did Stephen attempt to call 911.
Hello, I need help. I'm at Eagle Creek.
Okay, and what's going on there?
My girlfriend fell off the cliff and I hiked back. I'm in my car.
You're at the Eagle Creek trailhead right now?
Yeah.
When police arrived, there were a lot of immediate red flags. Stephen was showing no emotion, and he was only concerned with how cold he was. He was being completely uncooperative with police that were trying to find Rhonda's body, and he would only talk about how cold he was and that he thought that he had hypothermia, which he did not. Police eventually did find Rhonda's body, and she was tragically dead at only 23 years old, and it became suspiciously clear that no one had hiked down to her body before the police got there. Steve never went down to her body, and he never attempted to give her CPR. He lied about absolutely everything. And Rhonda's family immediately started pointing fingers at Stephen, believing that he pushed Rhonda off that cliff. And only 10 days after Rhonda passed away, Stephen tried to get his hands on her life insurance policy. Two weren't even married, and only a few weeks before Rhonda died, Steve took out a $1 million life insurance policy on Rhonda. So suspicious. What 23-year-old has a $1 million life insurance policy? The police start looking into Stephen's background and they find out that his ex-wife filed like a bunch of police reports against him for domestic violence, including one count where Stephen's ex-wife claims that Stephen tried to push her off their apartment balcony. So you have Rhonda, who says that Steve pushed her down a flight of stairs. You have his ex-wife, who says that Steve tried to push her off their apartment balcony. It's seeming more and more likely that Steve is the exact kind of guy that would push someone off of a cliff. And then Rhonda's mom came forward with some information that shocked everyone. Rhonda's mother said that Rhonda's younger sister, before any of this happened, before Rhonda passed away, told her that she had been sleeping with Steven. And this would have happened when Rhonda's younger sister was 15 years old and Rhonda's boyfriend Steve was 34. And Rhonda's mother actually said that at first she didn't believe her younger daughter. She thought that her younger daughter was making this up to try and break up Rhonda and Steven out of jealousy. And she only came forward with this information after Rhonda died. Which is so crazy because I could never imagine not believing my daughter if she said that something happened to her. But even crazier, Steven didn't even try to deny it. Steven confessed that he had been sleeping with his girlfriend and the mother of his child's underage sister. Sadly, years would go by and this case would go cold because there just wasn't concrete evidence to prove that Steven was guilty. But of course, everyone thought that he was guilty, especially Rhonda's loved ones. And to escape the scrutiny, Steve moved to China with him and Rhonda's daughter. He also refused to allow anyone from Rhonda's family to see her very young daughter. And I'm shocked he even was allowed to have custody of her at this time, because this is after he admitted to statutory SA. In 2014, Rhonda's case was reopened and they actually tricked Steven to come back to America with his daughter because they were going to try and arrest him. They just couldn't let this case go cold forever and they were going to try and get Rhonda justice, and they charged him with first-degree murder and statutory SA charges. The prosecution actually did multiple tests with dummies that were the same weight and height as Rhonda and took it to that cliff and pushed it off or had it fall off and determined that Rhonda had to have been pushed and pushed hard off of that cliff for her body to have been found where it was. But sadly, this was not enough to sway the judge, and the judge determined that there just wasn't enough evidence to find Steven guilty, and they suggested that the prosecution offer Steven a plea deal. Steven pled guilty to lesser charges of negligent homicide and third-degree SA charges. He is a registered SA offender, but he only received 14 months in prison as a sentence. But at this point, he had already served time awaiting trial, so Steven was released on time served. Steve's parental rights of him and Rhonda's daughter were terminated, and Rhonda's daughter will get her life insurance policy when she turns 18. But this case is very sad, very controversial, because a majority of people do believe that Steve got away with the murder of 23-year-old Rhonda Casto. I'm definitely interested to get your guys' opinions on this case, even though I'm pretty sure I know which way they're gonna lie. But definitely leave me all your thoughts, theories in the comment section. Until then, I love you guys so much, and I'll see you guys next time.